Hello and most welcome to 1875 of the H series. We will today continue with Retching on Rome, Vomitous, Loathing and Visceral Disgust in Effect Theory and the Apocalypse of John. Rather enticing. Last time we took a good look at beginnings and endings. We had a deep investigative look into mouses and anuses. Entering and re-entering. It would be good to remember that is what makes the outer to come to exist. And how the inner reaching out, as we exemplified both from mouth and anus, when it goes from the mouth, it's vomiting, the reversed order of eating. John was convinced to eat the scroll. That shows the inner movement in the more, so to speak, natural order. It's digested. And it goes into the digestive system via the stomach. Whereas the reversal vomiting is the interior entering to the exterior. A complete reversal. Whose or which ultimate purpose is still to re-enter the outside from the inside. The re-entering and the exiting is the movement. Movement is perpetually coming to be thanks to this re-entering and exiting. We compare that to a maelstrom last time in the article of Francis Y. Lynn. Following a rule is very common in the explanations of Wittgenstein, often acronymed FR. Following a rule in the third understanding is very similar, as we mentioned, the strange attractor in chaos theory. It is stable. It is not explicitly predictable, but to an extent implicitly predictable. What makes for the stability of the maelstrom or any complex chaotic system is the exiting and re-entering. The mouth and the anus. Skin is another area of contact. In Moore's article, you find it as cutaneous. The abject, the appalling, the disgusting is touching the skin, and objection arises. It's a skin. Skin felt sensation. It's very close to the inner. The entering and the exiting is the movement that is time. So time is not a diagrammatic extra axis in the Cartesian XYZ schedule, where every axis is orthogonally placed to each other, all coming from a thought origo, a perceived origo. Something that came by the left hemisphere, I would say, to replace being in the world. Be truly and in a real sense participatory in the world. There's a chiasm of difference in between the two. In the Cartesian approach, the skin, the mouth, and the anus, it's outside everything. It's transcendental. Which makes time as well something of a distant, non-interesting line, not connected to you. There will be very little chance of space and time that demands re-entering and exiting. mouth and anus, cutaneous direct contact, and all other direct contacts involving all senses, and our all corporal system. And here we have also the problematic, if you like, contradictions that never reach their conclusion in the Cartesian take. Something definitely made even worse with the Newtonian new paradigmatic shift going onward from 1689. Stepwise making us more and more distant from our own lived reality. Let's see. Maybe the most connective of all our traits are the very bodily based loathing, abjection, retching, vomiting, defecating, disgust. Those things all connect us deeply to the exteriority, joins interiority with exteriority. And I will continue my read as ended last time at page 525. That was lecture 873. And we go onward on page 526. Revelation's ambivalence toward Rome, then, can be effectively refigured as a simultaneous pulling toward and pulling away. From the sickening object of loathing. And here we have a quote: desire and disgust are dialectically conjoined. Pulling back, pulling out. entreating coitus interruptus. Come out of her, my people, pleads John 18:4. But through teeth clenched in rage, bodies that are disgusted, observes Ahmed, are also bodies that feel a certain rage. A rage that the object has got close enough to sicken and to be taken over or taken in. To be disgusted is, after all, to be affected by what one has rejected. Just feelings. John's rage has always been contagious, as has his revulsion. In fixing its objects as intolerable, disgust undeniably has been and will continue to be instrumentalized in oppressive and violent ways. And attraction. Yet emotion such as such, rage, revulsion, attraction, hate, fear, love, desire, shame. Does not circulate socially, Ahmed argues. Whether in and around the apocalypse or elsewhere. It is only objects of emotion. The one on the throne, the lamb that was slain. The beast from the abyss, the great whore, that woman Jezebel, that circulate and in circulating, such objects become sticky or saturated with effect as sites of personal and social tension. Ahmed's use of the word tension here is also apt in relation to revelation. The conflicting, contradictory effects that stick to the whore in particular and by extension to Rome evoke a stretched or strained state. A condition of being rent asunder, torn apart, that is felt uncomfortably in the body of the text, and by extension in the social body this tense text conjures up. The divided body of Christ followers, in the cities of Roman Asia, from the ancient textual remains of the sundered social body, the ghostly voices of these warring Christ followers still echo faintly. Triangulated with no less spectral, but also less visceral voice of Babylon. These distorted voices, densely layered with and continually reconfigured by the viscously adhesive effects that they have accumulated through the centuries. Some quotes here. Write in a book what you see. I, John, am the one who heard or saw these things. Babylon. Babylon. Tremendous. In Tierra del Fuego, a native touched with his finger some cold preserved meat, which I was eating. And plainly show disgust at his softness. Are you there, Echo? Whilst I felt utter disgust at my food being touched by a naked savage, though his hands did not appear dirty. Jezebel. Jezebel. Of course, it is significant that this cultural encounter takes place over food. Partly because the politics of what gets eaten or consumed is bound up with histories of imperialism, through emotions. The past persists on the surface of bodies.
Bodies.
Emotions show us how histories stay alive. Even when they are not consciously remembered. How histories of colonialism, slavery, and violence shape lives and worlds in the present. The time of emotion is not always about the past. And how it sticks. Echo.
Sticks.
Emotions also open up futures in the ways they involve different orientations to others. John, food is significant because food is taken into the body. The fear of contamination that provokes the nausea of disgust reactions, hence makes the food the very stuff of disgust.
Ouch.
Ouch. Jezebel, of course, we must eat to survive. So the very project of survival requires that we take something other into our bodies. Survival makes us vulnerable in that it requires we let what is not us in. To survive, we open ourselves up and keep the orifices of the body open.
Orifices
Orifice.
of the body open.
Mouth, anus, hooves. John, I feel sick. You have sickened me. You are sickening.
Yeah.
Jezebel. Of course, we are not just talking about emotions. when we talk about emotions. The objects of emotions slide and stick, and they join the intimate histories of bodies. With the public domain of justice and injustice. Justice is not simply a feeling, and feelings are not always just. But justice involves feelings which move us across the surfaces of the world, creating ripples in the intimate contours of our lives. Where we go with these feelings remains an open question. Open. Open question. That ends the reading of Stephen D. Moore's article, Retching on Road. I will now go to some quotes. Or rearrangement here. Well, here definitely there were quite a lot of interesting things to take notice of. I did like the text very much. It was movable, changeable, not overly closed, but it had its orifices opened. For that to be a possibility of an interaction for me as a reader. We had some interesting things here already at page 526, where we began. I think it was madly funny as well. Revelation's ambivalence toward Rome then can be effectively refigured as a simultaneous pulling toward and pulling away. from the sickening object of loathing. So we have the both tendencies at the same time, simultaneous, and we go towards and we go away at the very same time. And I like the quote here that's aptly fitted from Shan Nagai. Desire and disgust are dialectically conjoined. Isn't that great? Pulling back as I continue, pulling out, and treating coitus interruptus. Come out of her, my people, pleads John. But through teeth clenched in rage. So we have the simultaneous inviting tendency of John, but teeth clenched in rage. And the coitus interruptus, that means that first there is entering, but there is a preemptive exiting into the interior. Pulling back, pulling out. There is a deep connectivity between rage and invitingness. They are co-joined. I really like the idea here of dialectically conjoined. We read further down the fourth line from the end of page 526. And in circulating, such objects become sticky or saturated with effect as sites of personal and social tension. The circulatory effect that starts from going into the exterior from the inside, vomiting, retching, the nausea that comes from the probal of the outside, starts the circulating tendency that joins it all. Think of a maelstrom formed preemptively in a river crest. How everything that goes out from it and into it is strengthen its integrity. This is what this text does. It opens up and thereby builds more integrity. It's a strengthening tendency. If we go to page 527, there is a very nice surprise. It's a rather long sentence and it's divided by quotes from Revelation. From the ancient, it's on the fourth line, from the ancient textual remains of this sundered social body, their ghostly voices of this warring Christ followers still echo faintly, triangulated with a no less spectral, but also no less visceral. A construction Platonia, an odd name for such a shape, was made by the British physicist, and I'd say philosopher, thinker, Julian Barber. And he showed that triangulation, rather than the external take of X, Y, Z, and the time axis that we have been taking up so many times, is what really governs the universe. And the triangulation goes over the inner and over the outer. It doesn't acknowledge that difference. It thrives on it. It is that difference. And that is to be compared to the Newtonian system, where we have these sharp definitions, the borders that defy entry and re-entry. Read further down on the page. That's five lines from the bottom. The fear of the contamination that provokes the nausea of disgust reactions, hence makes the food the very stuff of disgust. There are a larger and larger evidence base that today anorexia and bulimia and other eating disorders are becoming progressively common. Because of the Newtonian Cartesian take, we will no longer allow an entering from the outside or an exiting from the inside. And therefore, the disgust only, no longer a conjoined disgust and rejoicement of food is possible. Instead, food disappears as a possibility. The sharp borders are bulimia and anorexia, and also our own bodily system that becomes allergic to the outside. Autoimmune diseases are the Newtonian thinking. The sharp borders, feeling disgusted about other human beings, no longer interacting with them in a sane and healthy way. The distance is itself the problem. We become detoned, as Derrida would have it. That is so brilliantly captured. I really like this. The last sentence on page 527. Survival makes us vulnerable in that it requires we let what is not us to survive. We open ourselves up and we keep the orifices of the body open. everything becomes open up and we re-enter and we exit. And at the very end here, the fourth line, and feelings are not always just, but justice involves feelings, which move us across the surfaces of the world, creating ripples in the intimate contours of our lives. And I end my comments there, and I invite my colleague, Kalle Lundahl. Please join.
Thank you. Although I'm not a fan of Charles Darwin, I do like the quotation from Darwin. And I will read the quotation. Babylon. In terra de fuoco, a native touched with his finger some gold, preserved meat which I was eating, and plain showed disgust at its softness, whilst I felt utter disgust at my food being touched by a naked savage, though his hands did not appear dirty. This quotation summarizes much of what Moore has been speaking about. It is about showing disgust, metaphorically and literally. And disgust is really the theme of this paper as well.
Indeed, disgust and rejoicement.
And if I ever were to write a commentary on the book of Revelation, I would take up this phrase from Revelation 13 verse 3. I commented on this last time, but it's worth repeating. The entire earth was amazed after the beast. Opiso, that is, it's amazed by its, or after its tail, so to say, we could say, or its anus.
Yeah.
And also anus was one of the themes of this paper.
Most definitely, yeah. The exiting and re-entering orifice.
And something else about this great phrase deserves to be repeated. A genial phrase. Breathes in John's belly, but John breathes or writes in Babylon's belly.
Yeah, most definitely. That's a marvelous sentence.
Yes. And I can compare it with Stephen M. Rosen's Wholesome with the W in between.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that last. Yeah, whole and whole. Yeah, it's just excellent.
And this paper shows we could call this paper a homage to Derrida's Glas.
Yeah.
Which he does quote and if you see all these strange quotations, and they are imitating Derrida's Glas. Although Derrida puts 3 columns, Moore doesn't go so far as put 3 separate columns. In Derrida's Glas, you have first one column quoting Hegel, second column quoting Jean Genet,
Yeah.
and the third column is Derrida's own commentary. And what is also typical of this Derrida's Glas is the emphasis on onomatopoeic sounds. Onomatopoeic sounds like the word glass or glass in English.
Yeah.
It's we put or if you go to etymology dictionary, there's always a focus on the so-called historical etymology, scientific etymology, while Derrida shows that it's actually the onomatopoeic onomatopoetic words were something parasitic for saussure, but also
Oh yeah,
for
he didn't like
many.
them. He didn't like them at all.
No.
It made almost Saussure into an anorectic. I was thinking of Gödel. He turned into an anorectic. He couldn't eat anymore.
And here we have something similar to Derrida's glass. These words, different words for disgust. You almost hear. We could delugma. They almost sound like the Swedish word äckel. Delugma. Äckel.
Yeah, they do have that
Blah,
sound to it.
Rather blah. Blah.
Yeah, it's very good.
And here you see footnote 47, you see actually the quotation from Gla. So it's very appropriate here, the quotation. Sperm, saliva, glare, roll. There's some milk. There's some milk. Yellow vomit. All this heavy and white substance. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, most definitely, yeah.
So, but let's end there. Hans, please say something concluding.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. And there is also a clear connection to what's becoming so common today. Eating disordered. I mentioned Gödel. When he couldn't have his closed world of cohesive correspondence inside his mathematical system, which was anal retentive. I don't think that is an exaggeration. He stopped eating after that, and he starved himself to death. And this is happening more and more. We shy away from other people who feel disgusted by them only, but let them onto our skin and allow the feeling of disgust go over to compassion, invitation, like in the case of John, where he invites people with a clenched jaw. I really like that. Anger and invitedness at the very same time. Isn't that great? I say thank you very much, Kalle Lundahl. Thank you everyone for listening in. Have a very pleasant morning, afternoon, night, or evening, wherever you are. Bye-bye for now.
Delugma. Blah.
Yeah.
Blah.